Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How to Talk to Your Family About Egg Donation for Donors. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today. We will be taking questions live and answering them live as well. So if you have questions for our speakers, please send them in using the questions tool. With us, we have Leah Swanberg. Leah is the founder and CEO of Canadian Fertility Consulting and Egg Helpers. Leah is a mother to 5 and a 2-time gestational surrogate and a 6-time egg donor. She began Canadian Fertility Consulting and Egg Helpers in 2007 after her second surrogacy, with the intention of creating a more rewarding surrogacy and donor experience for donors, surrogates, and intended parents. With a background in business development and management, Leah turned her personal passion for alternative family building into a business. We also have our in-house counselor, Jan Silverman, with us. Jan has worked in the field of reproductive health for the past 28 years, supporting, educating, and advocating on behalf of women and men struggling with issues of infertility. She headed a program at the Women's College Hospital and has consulted at the Create Clinic for the past 9 years. She was also selected as one of the 11 experts that has worked on the expert panel of infertility and adoption in 2008. As an infertile woman herself, Jan made her family through adoption. All right, let's get started. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And for those of you who are listening later, please feel free to email any questions that you have to us, as we'd love to get back to you to answer them. For myself, as Jordan said, I'm the owner of Canadian Fertility Consulting and Egg Helpers. I've also been an egg donor several times, and my 2 oldest children, who are 29 and 25, have also donated. So if you have questions about how to share this with your moms, and you'd like to even speak after about how, as a mom, I've sort of dealt with my kids donating, please reach out. Egg donation has just been such a gift in my life, and both professionally and personally. And so I'm just so glad to have the opportunity to share my experience with you and to have Jan share hers. So Jan, I'm going to pass it over to you. If you can just give sort of an overview of your role as a counselor and how you help donors navigate the process.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join in this webinar today. I love meeting with donors. I always think that they are just the heroines walking this earth that are helping people that never ever thought that they were going to be able to have a baby, that they so desperately want. So, wow, first of all, wow for thinking about it. And for those that move forward, wow for actually moving forward. So I have a number of roles. I work at a clinic, and I also do some work privately, and I do some of the assessments on the donors. And the assessment process is really, really important because, as I like to explain when I introduce myself, it allows me to make sure that a donor understands what she's doing and why. So she kind of gets to review in her own head kind of what brought her to this point in time. And the second point is that it allows me to make sure that her head is on straight enough. Straight enough, I always say. We don't need perfectly straight, we need straight enough, right? So it's a 2-prong process, but we take it seriously because at the end of the day, we want the donor and we want the recipient couple going out going, wow, wow. And we want to do all that we can to make sure that this wow moment really does exist. And part of that is by talking at the beginning, at the assessment, talking through the process if necessary, and knowing that they have someone that they can talk to all the way through at the end as well. So that's the initial role of what I do working with donors. Leah?
And
do you want
throughout the process, Jan, do you find that donors come back to you as they begin their medication? Like, are clinics open to having donors reach back out to you throughout to check in, or what would that look like?
I think it depends a lot on what clinics that you're going through. I think that all clinics, though, have the best interest of the donor truly in mind. But as I like to say, nobody in a clinic, especially a busy clinic, is a mind reader, right? So it's important that you know deep inside you that the supports exist, and that I can tell you for sure, working with egg helpers, that as well as other agencies, I'm sure, nobody looks weirdly upon a donor for saying, I just need to talk about a few things with someone. I think, if anything, that the agencies are going to be sure, what can we do to help support you through this journey? But raise your voice. Don't think anyone's going to think that there's something wrong with you. I like to think to the contrary. Someone is going to think, boy, there's something really right about this person, that's recognizing that she needs to talk about things a little bit more. So, yeah, really important.
Absolutely, and I would just second what Jan's talking about. As the owner of an agency, and who works with many donors, we encourage donors to reach out and ask for support as they're going through this process, and even after. And our services offer that counseling up to 2 years post egg retrieval, and we do that because often as women, we go through various stages in our life, and today I may feel absolutely wonderful about my participation in egg donation, but in 6 months down the line, something may come up within my life that sort of reminds me of the donation, and reminds me of you know various aspects of it that maybe I hadn't thought about, or really need to sort of just talk through. And so, I know for myself, it's really important, and I would imagine other agencies operate in the same way. So, from the assessment to appointments that you go to at the clinic, if anything ever comes up, I really want to encourage you to connect with the counselor at the clinic if they have one, or even with your nurse, to talk through any anxieties that are coming up for you, as it is a very amazing process, and I can tell you it's so fulfilling. However, being on medication and having life to balance, and having this donation to balance, it can often become a lot, and it's really important that as donors move through, that they feel truly supported and cared for. But as Jan said, clinics don't often know who needs the support and who doesn't. So please let either us know, or your clinic know. So Jan, I've got a bunch of questions for you. So the first question is, I've been a donor twice and I'm planning to donate a third time. In my legal contract, it says that I will be made aware of any children who result from that. However, I've decided that I don't want to know. It feels too personal for me. Can you give me advice on that?
It's interesting, and I wish we were kind of a little face to face, because I'd like to know what you mean by too personal. Because often when I speak to donors, I will hear things that are quite contrary to what I'm hearing from the intended parents. So sometimes I will hear things that I don't want to be in the way of the relationship with the intended parent. And what I'm hearing from the intended parent is, I welcome that. I'd like to know more. So I think we have to sort out, what does that really look like, and what does it really mean? And I think it's really important to kind of look within yourself and figure out, what am I feeling, and not impose what you feel on somebody else, and not let somebody else, like an intended parent, impose their thinking on you. But it's worthy of discussion about that. I mean, I know that most of the donors that I speak to really are doing this because they really and truly want to help somebody. Like, it's in their nature. They want to help someone to make a family. And I think often by knowing that it really did happen, it kind of goes, yeah, what I set out to do, check mark. It really came to be. And I think my concern is that it may feel right now, but how do you think you will feel in the future? And Leah, I'm not sure if someone says that they don't want to know now and comes back to you in a year, can they find out at that point if it's been agreed?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that goes without saying. You know, for many people, they put right into the legal agreement their expectations, and those expectations sometimes change, and so most definitely, you know, and I believe, you know, most donor agencies you know, would have the same policy for sure.
So I think
Um,
take a pulse point, think, okay, where is that thinking coming from? And I think that that would be a perfect situation, as Leah had mentioned in the first question. This would be a perfect situation that you kind of connect with the counselor and let's explore the thinking a little bit more, see where it's coming from, and see where we need it to go.
Excellent, thank you. The next question, and this one, Jan, I honestly don't know if you'll be able to sort of answer without sort of more context, but I'm hoping you can. I applied to be a donor with a US agency. However, at the time I disclosed childhood sexual abuse and having dealt with depression in the past, albeit situational, I was turned down as a donor. And sorry, I'm just trying to read and I was turned down as a donor due to the depression and sexual abuse. However, I'm now donating with a Canadian agency who has offered additional support to me. What advice would you give me as I'm ready to start medications in 2 weeks?
I'm just a little, what advice about coping with some of the
Yeah,
depression?
about coping. Yes.
Okay, again, this is a perfect opportunity, and seems like I'm coming back to that, to make use of the counseling that may be available to you. I think that awareness is a really big thing, okay? I don't know if you're currently on medication or not, and if you're not on, and you're probably, you know, it depends on what medication you're on, because some is not good during this time period, and some may be. Again, I'm not a physician, and I have to be clear about that. But I think that this is an opportunity to put into place some of the other strategies that you do utilize to help yourself cope with some of the symptoms that may be associated with depression. Like medication can be good, but you also have to have an arsenal of other strategies that help you. I mean, thank goodness it's finally spring. You may be able to utilize some strategies like going out and taking walks. You may be able to put some exercising into place. You know, over this COVID time, I think many of us have had an opportunity to explore what brings us joy. I think we've all explored it enough, and now we don't know what we want to do anymore. But I think there is a growing arsenal, as well as, to be honest, for some people, it's also been a very anxiety producing, nervous, depressive period to be kind of holed up in whatever environment you are in. So it might, again, just be the best to kind of talk it through. Different clinics have different criteria. It doesn't mean that the Canadian clinic is any less thoughtful and caring, but we put things in a different perspective. You know, so I don't think that you have to worry that the American clinic knew something that the Canadian doesn't. The American agency knew something that the Canadian doesn't. It's that we view it in a different way. And we know, unfortunately, that many people have been victims of abuse in the past. And we also know that many people do have depressive incidences as well as anxiety that has really risen over this period. And one of the roles in the assessment is to kind of sort this out. I can tell you as a counselor, if we feel that it is serious and that we are very concerned, then we will make it known to the clinic and to the agency, and they will honor, hopefully, and respect what we have said. But the fact that you have kind of moved forward suggests that you are in a place in your life that you feel able and willing to move to this next step. But if you're having a bit of a, ooh, reach out. That's what counselors are there for. Reach out.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that, with the topic of this webinar is to, how to share egg donation with your family. And I know for many of the donors that we've worked with, that has been the greatest concern, is that their family is just concerned of how they will navigate this from a mental health perspective, how they will feel 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. And I will tell you that in terms of the issue that you brought forward of sexual abuse, letting your agency know that you want to ensure that there's a nurse in the room for all appointments, that for some of our donors, they really will only donate if the physician is a female. They will only participate if they have someone with them in the room at all times. And so really letting people know so that they can fully support you. And I know for us, we have many donors, and we note it in the chart, and we speak to the doctor directly, and we really make sure that that the clinic is going to appreciate that this may bring up feelings for you, and so that they are going to care for you in a very, very specific way. So just please know that. And you are a unique person. However, 1 in 4 of our donors has said to us, and that's just statistically where we're at, that they have struggled with mental health issues in the past, and we really want to support them. And sometimes supporting them is unfortunately saying, hey, because of these sort of genetic diagnoses of mental health issues, we're not able to move forward, but we greatly appreciate your interest. And other times it is absolutely, this sounds like a situational time in your life that things were tough, and we'd love to move forward with you. So and as a mom who has kids that have donated, we've definitely had that conversation as well about how to really plan for for things that may come up for you. So please reach out. Jan, our next question for you is.
Before you go to the next question, I just want to add that one of the things that, when we do an assessment, that's exactly why we always ask about whether there's any history of sexual abuse or physical abuse. Because I think sometimes donors have looked at me and gone, what does this have to do with donation? It's not about the donation. It's about creating a sensitivity and making sure that people are aware. And again, it happens. Not only is it nothing to be ashamed of, but it's something to just kind of honor that part of you that has experienced what you've experienced. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and that really, thank you, Jan, for that. So the next question is, I'm afraid to tell my mom that I'm going to be an egg donor. However, I can't imagine doing it without her support. How is a gentle way to bring this up? Because I am going to do it.
Okay, perfect kind of question. And good for you for your sensitivity towards your mom and her feelings and all that, because that's a whole big thing on how do parents respond. And I will be honest, is if I wasn't in this business and my daughter came up to me and just kind of sprung it on me, I'd go, what? Because first and foremost, what are you talking about? Because very often they don't know anything about egg donation and they have to become informed. So I think that you know that when you have thought about being a donor, and especially if you've thought about it and know that people may not approve and you're still going to go through with it, then you've given it really good thought. You've really, really thought about it. So you have to understand chances are that it's coming out of left field for your mom and that it's going to be a what? Where did this come from? And also as a parent, and I'm sure Leah can attest to this as well, her first thought is going to be about you. Are you going to be okay? Are you fine? Is it going to do any damage to you? Is it going to harm you? Are you going to be able to have kids in the future? You know, but you're giving away my grandchild. That's a biggie, where we hear a lot of those sorts of things. So first of all, I'm going to suggest that what you have to review in your head very clearly are your reasons for why you are doing this. I want you to know that. I want you to kind of sit, and even if it takes, you know, getting your piece of paper out, get your piece of paper out and jot these things down and review in your own mind. I am doing this because I really think that, you know, gay men should have an opportunity to make a family. Because I watched somebody, a good friend, go through years of infertility issues, and this is a way to help. Because they're in me to give, they exist. They're the, you know, whatever your specific reasons are, have them delineated. You know, I think that this is a time where we are really looking at how do we truly help one another, right? You know, for years we always talk about do good things for other people, blah, 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 right? Everyone says you're supposed to do nice things. Well, you know what? Frame it that way. You are doing something extraordinary that is going to change the life of somebody else forever, forever. And I think that's awesome. And I think by your sensitivity of both being aware of mom's reaction, but knowing that you want her to know, because you also want her approval. You want her to know that you're doing something special. So I think you can tell her that way, you know, obviously you're old enough to make your own decisions because you wouldn't be donating if you weren't the age of majority. So I think when you can clearly say, Mom, hopefully I've learned from you that it is a good thing to give and to help other people. And this is a way that I'm choosing. And I want to stress that again, choosing. Nobody is forcing you to be a donor. This is a choice that you are making. Take responsibility for your choice. Tell her that this is important to you and let her know that you want her support. That, you know, hopefully she has been one of your models, one of your role models about doing good for other people. And this is a way that you are going to be helping other people. So a beginning suggestion. Leah, do you have a few things to add while I collect my thoughts? And I apologize for all these little noises. People are trying to call me, and I apologize.
No problem at all. Absolutely. I know that, you know, I've spoken to lots of donors. I know even for myself when I donated and talked to my mom about it, she wasn't really sure what I was talking about. And she, you know, it was a number of, you know, 14 years. I mean, it was a long time ago. And at that time, I wasn't running this business and, you know, it wasn't sort of something we spoke about often. But at the end, I really, you know, I prefaced it with, Mom, I've got big news. I'm going to be participating in something and I really need your support. And if you're unable to support me, I understand. However, it's really important that I only am, you know, encouraging conversations at this point. I've made this decision and it made it go all right. She's, you know, I don't think she understood it. I really, really don't. And that's okay. Not everyone is going to agree. Not everyone is going to support you. I know we have had, and this goes into the next question, culturally, it's a sensitive topic for people. And so the next question, Jan, is I am a newcomer to Canada. My parents are still in China. I don't want to tell them for fear of rejection. Do you think I have to tell them?
No, I don't think you have to tell them, to be honest. I think it would be nice to be able to share that you have done this remarkable thing. But I think right now, again, you wisely put through, there are cultural differences, and we cannot pretend that cultural differences don't exist. But the other thing is that they are very far away. They are in China. I think that they would probably be incredibly concerned about your health and your well-being. And I think that that is a big thing. Leah just spoke about knowledge. And I just want to, in general, say that whether you tell or not tell, we're just going to ignore another phone call. Whether you tell or don't tell. I'm so sorry. I should have, they're all over the phone. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to let it bang through because it's making me distracted. Okay, thank you. So I think that knowledge becomes a big piece. And I think just back that even letting people know that informing, a little bit of information can go a long way. At some point, you might want to even tell your parents in China that you became aware or that you have friends, or just kind of open up the door a little bit, or open up the window a little bit, open it up a crack. I do want to stress that if your parents don't know, and again, I get that. And I think if my daughter was halfway around the world and doing any kind of medical procedure and I wasn't there, I'd be a little nervous. So I'm just being sensitive to that. But please make sure that you have some supports out there for yourself. That's really, really important to us. Make sure that there's a friend or someone at the clinic that's going to help you through this process as well. I mean, we do have to honor where people come from. It's generational. We don't, in your parents' generation, it wasn't common. It wasn't heard of in China. It's still not heard of regularly, right? So we have to understand that and don't force them along, because it's challenging when they're not there for you to really explain it fully.
Absolutely. And I think that as we're excited about something and we want everyone to be excited about it, we have to understand that not everyone is going to be excited about things that excite us. And that's what makes us individuals. And so, choose to share, in a way that feels good to you, and, not maybe being attached to their excitement or the outcome that you're hoping for from them.
And I also wanted to add, Leah, that I'm a big believer in preparing. So people will challenge and question often about, what are you doing that for? You're doing what? A lot of people, and I don't mind people challenging, by the way. I think when people ask some questions, it helps us to solidify our own thinking. They're asking me why, yep, I know why I'm doing it. It helps make us stronger inside as to why we were doing something. So I'm not afraid of that. But sometimes there are misconceptions that people have about that as well. So they need to become informed about this process as well. How much you're getting paid? So you're doing it because you're going to get paid. Well, people need to know that in Canada, we don't get paid. We do get reimbursed, but we're not getting paid. Right, Leah?
Absolutely. And
people will think that, so they think, oh, you're doing this for, they don't understand. Tell them.
Right. And, the next question is sort of the flip side of that. It's from a mom with a 12 and 15-year-old child. She says she had her children very young and has always been extremely open with them. Do donors tell their children when they have children this age that they're doing this?
My guest has, well, again, most of my donors, when they have children, the children tend to be younger, so it hasn't come up. But I always ask them, do you plan to tell your child someday, when they're able to understand? Because I think it's a really special and important thing to be able to share that with a child. I think, again, I always come back to that children get to learn that you don't just talk about doing good things, but you actually do it. You people are kind of walking the talk about doing good. You're not just talking it. It's easy to say, I'm going to do something, you're doing it. Why shouldn't a child know that, I'm not just telling someone that I'm going to do something good, but I'm actually doing it. So I think that's really important. And I know that there's often concerns about, well, what if if we don't tell, or they do, and they someday grow up and they meet somebody and it's genetically their half sibling, or, that whole thinking about, what if, the what ifs. Well, statistically, the likelihood of that happening is negligible. It's very, 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 except on Facebook or something where they always pick up 1 in a million situations, but usually it doesn't come up that way. But I just think that it's a good thing for kids to know that there may be other children out there that share some genetic background with them. And again, I don't want some donor child coming to your door someday, meeting you and having your child say, who is this person? I think the more that we can make things natural and comfortable and just what is, I like honesty. What can I say? Let's talk about things openly and honestly as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I would like to encourage you or the person with the question, by saying that my children are very aware of my being a donor. And yeah, it's just something that, that their mom did, and it's great. And we talk about, when we get some photos or updates, and we talk about, how these kids sort of look like them, and how cool is that? And, we talk about their parents and their families. And it's really been fantastic and an encouragement to my children. And I'm sure that's why, my two adult kids have also been donors. But I really think in sharing this with your kids, there are amazing books out about egg donation, and I would encourage you to sort of check out Amazon. There are, literally 50 books now. There used to be 5. Really,
Oh,
really good books that you could share with your kids.
and I just want to stress, when you're talking to your children about egg donation, also stress to them, because we want them to understand this is 2020. No one way to build a family. No one way. Move out of the box.
Yeah.
There are so many different ways that define family. My family's through adoption. Leah has a family that's made up of different children, some children that were, whatever. But we can have foster children. We can have sperm donor children, egg donor children. We can have children through adoption. We can have children through surrogacy. We can have grandparents that are raising children. And the beauty, as Leah said, put any of these books into Amazon and they will happily give you 100 different books, 500 different books. You can spend every bit of money that you don't have buying books that will talk about different ways to make a family. But let's children grow up knowing this. Let's move out of the box that there is mommy, daddy, children. That's not the reality of life anymore. Let's make it okay.
Absolutely. And I would really encourage you to, to let your kids catch you talking about it. Of course, after you've spoken to them, and you will catch your kids talking about this. I mean, I can tell you, my kid has gotten more A's on projects talking about my participating as a surrogate and an egg donor because the teachers just are fascinated by it. And it really has just become a part of our family. So, if you ever would like to talk about how this impacts children, please reach out. I would love to share my experience with you.
And
My next, oh, sorry.
I want to just add that this whole concept of what we now call diblings, which is donor siblings or diblings as they're called, and there's thinking that that's just going to be bigger and bigger in the next generation as more kids are going to find out that they have, oh, we had the same sperm donor. Oh, we had the same egg donor. Oh, and so they just feel that this is going to be happening more and more. So make it just part of something that the children grow into, that they just know it. So it's not a, oh, when it's just incorporated from the get-go, it's just part of their, it's just out there. This is what our family includes.
Absolutely. So the next question, sorry, just I want to, it's kind of long, so I just want to put it into a shorter question. The next question is, I've been approached by my sister and her husband to be their egg donor. However, she doesn't want me to tell our mom, as she doesn't know she's struggling with infertility. I feel like it would be too large of a family secret. Can you tell me the difference between donating to a family member or stranger, as I'm interested in donating now, but probably not to my sister?
Well, that's a pretty powerful question, to be honest. It's a whole different kind of, there's great similarities, but there are enormous differences. Because as much as a donor, when it's not anonymous, may have a little bit of contact with the recipient couples, when it's a family member, it's another whole thing. It means that you look at a child and you think, well, that's my egg. You can think that on one hand, but the other hand can be that if you share the same genetic parents, kind of as close genetically as it can be to it coming from your sister herself, which is why it's so attractive for so many people to use siblings, because, in a perfect world, it would be nice to have my genetics. I'm sure her thinking is that it would be nice to have your genetics, the same genetics going on. So Leah, did she say she's already agreed to, but under the condition that she hasn't agreed to? So I think it's really important that she knows that she is allowed to say no. Like, she is allowed to say no, and I have had that happen many times. I've had many, many, many sibling to sibling donation, but I've had many as well of sibling to siblings that have said, I can't move forward on that. I think the tricky thing, truthfully, is going to be if you agree to donate to somebody else, then I'm going to anticipate that may lead to some feelings of hurt and resentment from your sister. Well, she won't do it. So she's not objecting to donating, she's objecting to donating to me. So I think you have to examine that a little bit more deeply. And I'm going to go back to that early point. This is where I'm really going to suggest that we could use some counseling. First of all, your sister would have to be counseled no matter what. As an intended parent, she has to go through a counseling session. And her reasons for not wanting to disclose would have to be really investigated. Yeah. So you have to examine what is the part of me that doesn't feel comfortable. Is it that I'm not comfortable donating to my sister, or I'm not comfortable hiding it from the family? And I think that's the part that has to be sorted out. I think there's also a component that I've had people talk about, not to raise something that you haven't maybe thought about, which is, ew, isn't it weird, my egg and her husband? And
Mm.
I've sometimes had what we think of as the yuck factor. Yuck. Ooh, I would never want to have a kid with him. And that has to be, again, you have to be honored for that piece in
Okay.
there. But it's something that's hard to give a direct, because we really
Right.
need to hear more about the different pieces.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Those are all the questions I have. But Jordan, are there any questions that maybe were sent directly to you?
Hi, Leah. Yes, we have a few women who are wondering if you could give some guidance. They are really interested in becoming egg donors, but their partners aren't 100% on board, and they were just wondering what their next step should be and how to navigate that.
So
Okay.
I will give my opinion first. Um, and, you know, having been a donor and having been in a previous marriage in which my partner did not support my donating, um, I really looked at it as, you know, my body, my choice. I really looked at it from a place of, while you may not agree, I will require your support, and here's what support looks like for me. Um, and it was very difficult. And I did not have his support. And I really struggled with that. And I think, you know, or I know 14 years ago, 13 years ago, there wasn't the same openness to counseling and support. And it is one of the key foundational sort of pieces of Egg Helpers, is that our donors have that. And I think it's so important so that you or yourself and your partner can seek that support to really, you know, flesh out what it's about. Is it about him wanting to have a child with you and you don't have a child together? Is it about maybe um, his background, and maybe this isn't something he's been exposed to, or, you know, what is that about? You know, and I wouldn't suggest going ahead without a partner support, but I wouldn't suggest not going ahead without a partner support. I would suggest really exploring for yourself what support looks like and how having someone in your life show up for you um, is so important, and is this person able to do that? And Jan, I'm going to turn it over to you, because I have too much of a bias on this around women's reproductive rights and health, and, you know, do you. So I'm out on this. Don't let me comment, because I probably will want to after you talk.
I'm not gonna, okay. So I do agree with you. I mean, I do believe that it's a woman's body and it's my body, but I also think you live in a relationship. So if you're living in this relationship, I think the important thing is to hear what the concerns are. Like, I think it's part of it. Are there misconceptions? Does he think that this is going to damage you or hurt you or cause you to not be able to have kids when the two of you are ready to have kids? Or is he seeing it as you're having sex with somebody else? You know, not directly, but sometimes there's just really, really bizarre kind of thinking, or not, that's a bit strong, or some misconceptions of what this process is and is not about. So I'm going to stress that the really important thing is to hear him out. Don't, no, 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 no. Don't not hear him. You can still say no, no, no about what he has to say. But I think it is really important to at least hear him. What are those concerns? You know, again, I stress that you have done thinking about it. You've probably talked to somebody about it. You've watched videos. You've done some research. and he probably hasn't. So at least clarify, give him some information, let him know a little bit about what the process is about, and hear him. Because if this is a relationship that's important to you, then at least he needs to be validated. He needs to know that you did hear him, that you're not ignoring his concern. So validation, and then do what you think is right. I'm not going to ask you what you think. I'm not asking you, Leah.
Thank you. Jordan, was that it for questions?
That's everything for today.
Excellent. So to all of you that are watching or are going to watch in future, I want to thank you on behalf of intended parents for your participation as a donor. Whether you donate in a known, semi-known, anonymous egg donation, please know that you are appreciated and you are so valued, and appreciated and valued. Donating aside, the fact that you're even thinking about this just shows the world your beauty. So thank you so much. And Jen and I hope to have some more webinars. So if there are topics you'd like to hear about in terms of egg donation, fertility, women's health, please reach out and let us know. We'd love to pick it up there for you.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk again. And please remember, support does exist. Reach out and find it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan, as well, and Leah.
Yes.